The goal of the statistics lab is for you to look at measurements of various greenhouse gases, which we're going to abbreviate GHGs. And you're going to look at these measurements over large time spans and in various locations. You're going to see how the concentration of these greenhouse gases is changing over time. And you're also going to look at how temperature is changing over time. Maybe it's increasing, maybe it's not, maybe it's decreasing. So you're going to make plots of concentrations of greenhouse gases, make predictions for the future. You're going to make plots of temperature and make predictions for the future. All of the data that you're going to be using, and these are some very large data sets, come from the NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association. This is real data collected by them. And you're going to use it to do some manipulations in Excel and perform a lot of statistics. There's a number of things we want you to do before lab. One of them is the stats pre-lab. This is found on Carmen. It's going to take you some time potentially to do this pre-lab. It's all in Excel. You need to upload your Excel file for credit before lab in order to get the full credit. You also need to print the handout. You will be turning in the handout at the end of lab. And I also want you to complete parts 1 and 2 before lab. There's some background information in these parts that it will be better if you looked at before lab. And part 2, I believe, is a calculation that you can do on your own. And finally, I want you to, if you have one to bring a computer and your pre-lab file. You're going to be using this pre-lab file in lab. It's going to set up all of the calculations for you, and it's going to make the calculations in lab go really smoothly. If you don't have a computer to bring with you, that's fine. We've got a number of computers in the lab that you're welcome to use. So if you don't want to bring one or you don't have one to bring, that's no big deal. Once you get to lab, we're going to work in groups of 3. Groups of 3 because the way the handout is written, we're going to be looking at 3 different greenhouse gases. We're going to look at carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. So each person will look at a specific greenhouse gas. Now, we want you, during the lab, to figure out when and how to use F-tests and T-tests. So we want you to use the appropriate F-test and T-test during the lab. And all of this is going to be done at the 95% confidence level. So make sure that you're using F-tables and T-tables that are appropriate for this 95% confidence level. And the other important thing to know how to do is to discern between one-tailed and two-tailed tests. Okay, so discerning between one-tailed and two-tailed, this is really in how the question is being posed. So make sure you're able to do that. And throughout the experiment, or the lab, you're going to compare a number of different things. You're going to compare location. So the data files that we have are for various locations around the globe. And you're going to see if the concentration of specific greenhouse gases is the same in those locations. Then you're going to look at concentration of GHGs over a large time span. See if the concentration is changing over time. We've got a relatively short time span and then a really large time span. We actually have some ice core data that we're going to look at for concentrations of greenhouse gases. You're going to make predictions for the future. In terms of concentration of greenhouse gases and in terms of temperature. Excuse me. We do have temperature data over time for a couple of locations, and so you're going to try to make a conclusion as to whether the temperature is affected by greenhouse gases. So when you finish your handout, I want you to try to see how all of the questions that we posed are connected. And from there, you're going to write a conclusion statement. This is something you're going to turn in on Carmen, 1 paragraph. We want you to be thinking about all the tests that you've done. Using the results from those tests, write a conclusion that talks about the relationship of greenhouse gases and temperature. That's it. It's a 1-week lab. If you've done all of the pre-lab work, it should go relatively quickly. And then all you'll need to do for the next time is to write that conclusion paragraph and upload it to Carmen.